There was a strong show of support for protesters on Wall Street today as the so-called occupier protests continue to spread across the country. We have team coverage on the growing demonstrations. Tim Gordon will tell us how police are trying to get ready for a protest here in Portland tomorrow. But we begin with Joe Smith for a look at what happened on Wall Street today. Joe?
Well, Tracy, some of the nation's most powerful unions turned out for the march on Wall Street today, giving the movement a new face and resources to take it to a new level. Hundreds of union members joined the rapidly growing members of Occupy Wall Street protesters. They are speaking out against what they call corporate greed, government corruption, and a broken economy. The message of social inequality, along with rising unemployment, has struck a chord with powerful unions, including transit workers, teachers, and labor groups.
They're fighting to make sure that the rich, the multi-billionaires pay their fair share. And we believe in that same concept.
There's no protection. No matter who we vote for, nothing happens. No matter if we paid twice on our debt, just try to get ahead, it still doesn't happen. So people feel like they're getting shafted.
What started as a grassroots rally in a lower Manhattan park just over 2 weeks ago has swelled into a nationwide movement. Dozens of similar protests have now been held in U.S. cities, and it's not likely to end anytime soon. The New York protesters say they are prepared to camp out indefinitely. Back to you.
Thank you, Joe. Our team coverage continues with News Channel 8's Tim Gordon live at Pioneer Courthouse Square. And Tim, police are preparing for possibly thousands of protesters right here tomorrow.
Well, that's true, Tracy, and where they will go is a little bit unclear. We do expect that they will hit the bricks at some point after leaving the waterfront, at least be around the bricks, but where they'll go from there to occupy any facilities is unclear. Will it be banks? Will it be government buildings? We just don't know because organizers aren't saying exactly. At a meeting last night, people said they would meet in Waterfront Park near the Burnside Bridge at noon tomorrow, announce their march plans at that point. These ongoing protests have been, for the most part, peaceful. Yesterday, they hit Boston and L.A. Occupy Portland protesters say they'll be peaceful here, too.
We've noticed that in Wall Street, the people were going to originally be occupying Wall Street itself. When they showed up that day, it was barricaded off. We want to make sure that we have the element of surprise to do something that's completely legal.
But police still want them to get a permit and give their march plans exactly so officers can block traffic and let the march happen safely for everyone. In fact, a police bureau spokesperson told me they will not barricade off areas that the marchers may want to go if they know in advance that's not the purpose of that. Mayor Sam Adams told me this afternoon that, permitted or not, the city will work with this group to make sure that it remains peaceful. We'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Tim Gordon, live downtown for us.
Thousands marching through downtown New York, the largest crowd yet, and more varied in age and background.
I came by here on day 3 and saw this, and of course I joined.
The group has not yet come together on what their message is. We got sold out. But union leaders who have thrown their support behind the protesters say they understand.
They've all got different kinds of issues. There's students who can't get a job. There's industrial workers whose factories have been moved to China who can't get a job. There's people who have lost their homes and can't find a place to live. And people are saying, like that movie, hell no, I'm not taking this anymore.
Today's union backing drew out people like Leanne Nikitovich, a single mother from New York.
I work more than ever in order to just live and keep the basics up, and I don't see a future really. I don't know how I'm going to retire.
Protests have popped up all over the country. In L.A., even soggy weather couldn't keep people away.
You can't rain out an idea.
And in Chicago, anger at a sign posted in the windows of the Chicago Board of Trade. We are the 1%, mocking the protesters' call that they are the 99%, the vast majority of ordinary Americans who've been pummeled by the recession. The movement has even drawn the attention of those in Washington.
They blame with some justification the problems in the financial sector for getting us into this mess. And they're dissatisfied with the policy response here in Washington. And
At some level, I can't blame them.
Experts say, though still largely undefined, the movement has a lot of potential.
Just as a show of support, to have thousands of people out on the streets agreeing with the fundamental demands and issues that these protesters are raising, I think it means they've already won.
Now, despite a heavy police presence, today's march was orderly and there were few arrests, a departure from last weekend when 700 were taken into custody in a single day. Brian?
Morris Giavacampo starting us off lower Manhattan tonight. Thanks. And there's a lot of this going around. In Greece today, just about the entire country was shut down by protests over their ongoing debt crisis. Protesters clashed with police as a 24-hour general strike closed all government operations, including schools, mass transit, courts, air traffic control, even hospitals. They're protesting tax increases, pay cuts aimed at lowering Greece's budget deficit, which is a condition for any more international bailout money, by the way. Without it, Greece will default on its debt, a possibility that has hit the American stock market hard in recent months. And back in this country, there's fresh and stark evidence tonight about another divide, the gap between the all-volunteer military that fights this nation's wars and the civilians who don't. After 10 years of war in Iraq and Afghanistan, a new study out today from the Pew Research Center asks veterans how they feel about their sacrifice. We get more from our Pentagon correspondent, Jim Miklaszewski.
It's another startling sign that 10 years and 2 wars have taken a tremendous toll on America's servicemen and women. In the survey conducted by the Pew Research Center, only 34% of combat veterans said the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were worth fighting. But nearly just as many, an alarming 33%, said the wars were not worth it. The survey dug even deeper into the personal impact of the wars, the terrible hardships suffered by the troops and their families. Nearly half said the wars put a strain on their lives at home. Nearly half said they frequently feel irritable or angry. And 37% said they suffer post-traumatic stress. The economy also weighs heavily on their minds. 28% said they enlisted in part because they couldn't find a job in the public sector. 2 months ago, the economy was the top concern when Joint Chiefs Chairman Mike Mullen visited soldiers and Marines in Afghanistan. Instead of asking about the war, they were more worried about budget cuts and losing their jobs.
We're going to have to tighten our belts, and we're going to have to prioritize. We're going to have to make some hard decisions.
There's also a dramatic disconnect between American service members and the rest of the country. 8 out of 10 of those veterans believe the American public has no idea of the problems they face in the service. And only 25% of civilians surveyed said they even pay any attention to the wars.